Hello everyone! In today's video, we're going to be making these really cute little bell bags from Animal Crossing. This video is suited for beginners. I take this really slow and show you step by step how to make these cute little bell bags. I don't know if I would start with this for your very first crochet project. I would maybe not work in the round as your first project. But this is still a really good beginner project if you've made a couple of things. I used a really small yarn for this project because I needed these to be really tiny for the project that I'm adding them to. So I used a super fine size 1 cotton yarn for my bell bags. And for the red yarn, I used a acrylic sport weight 2 yarn. You can use any size yarn or any type of yarn that you would like for this project. It will look good with a lot of different yarns and sizes, but just keep in mind that if you size up, your bell bag will be bigger. And with that, I hope you all enjoy this tutorial. The first thing that we're going to create is our little star. And the first thing we want to do is to create a magic ring. To create a magic ring, place your 2 fingers out like this, and place the yarn over your 2 fingers, and then grab it with your thumb to secure it. And I really don't need a very long tail, so I'm just gonna leave mine like that. And then grab, this is referred to as your working yarn, your yarn that's coming from your skein. So grab your working yarn and wrap it around your 2 fingers. And I'm bringing it behind the first piece of yarn. And then I'm gonna secure it with my finger like this. Now take your hook and we're going to slide it under the first piece of yarn and over the second piece of yarn. We're going to be pulling the second piece of yarn under the first piece, and we're going to be twisting it to create a loop. So grab that second piece of yarn and then just kind of twist it around your hook, just like that. And then I'm going to pull the yarn over here, my working yarn, to tighten this loop. I want it to be pretty tight, but I still want to be able to move my hook through it. And then yarn over and bring that piece of yarn through the loop, just like that. And now you've made a magic ring. We're going to tighten the tail, so go ahead and just pull this tail. We can make this pretty tiny because this is a really tiny star that we're making. If you leave your circle too big, it might be really hard to work the star into. So this is plenty right here. We're going to start by creating a single crochet into the magic ring. So to do that, insert your hook through the magic ring. And it's super important that you leave the tail over your magic ring. If your tail is down here, you're not going to be able to close the magic ring. So keep it on top of the magic ring. When you work into the magic ring, you always work over both of these pieces. So to create a single crochet, we're going to yarn over and pull up 2 loops. And you can really kind of pull on the magic ring here to help secure this, and so that you can see your 2 loops on your hook here, and then yarn over and pull through those 2 loops. We're going to mark the very first single crochet so that we know where it is. So just put it on top of the 2 V's right here. And you don't have to mark this, it's not super important, but if you are a beginner, it might help you after we're done. Now we're going to create what is called a picot. And to create that, we just need to chain 2, and then we're going to slip stitch into our single crochet. So the chain, yarn over, and pull through the loop, yarn over, and pull through the loop. So there we've created our 2 chains. To slip stitch into our first single crochet, we're just going to go into this bar right here. So you see the chain here, and then there's this kind of vertical bar. That is where we're going to be slip stitching. So take your hook and put it through that bar and then yarn over and pull through the first loop. And it might help you to really kind of pull your working yarn tight and then pull that through the next loop. Let's do one more together. So insert your hook through the magic ring. Make sure your tail is on top. Yarn over. You should have 2 loops on your hook. Yarn over and pull through those 2 loops. I forgot to mention that this star, it's literally just making the very first thing we did 5 times. So it's a very simple little star. So after our single crochet, we're going to chain 2. And now, working into that vertical bar on our single crochet, we're going to slip stitch. And then pull this tight for your second one. Just like that. Okay, now go ahead and create the rest of your star points. And if you feel like your magic ring is too big, you can always tighten it. Like I said, this can be really tiny because we are making a little star. Just don't make it too small so that you can still work your stitches into it. Once you are finished with all 5 of your points, you're going to remove your hook. Turn your star over and we are going to pull the tail really tightly. I know the star is incomplete right now, but that is what we want. So leave it like that for the moment. And then we're going to be leaving a semi-long tail to sew this onto the bag. It doesn't need to be anything too extreme. And then take your hook and bring the yarn up. And now we're going to join it to the other point. Place your yarn on a darning needle. And then where we have our stitch marker, where the first single crochet is, we're going to take our needle. Sorry, this is so tiny, it's hard for me to see. Take your needle through where your stitch marker is. That's the first single crochet, and we're pulling our yarn through. And this nicely completes our star. And then let's remove this stitch marker. Now look at your star, and I like to decide what point I want the top of the star to be. With the picot, I find that usually my points don't look perfect or too similar, which is fine. So just kind of turn this around and just see what you think looks best as the top of the star. I like mine like this. And then turn this around. And we would just want to secure this yarn just a little bit more. So drag it across a few stitches in the back. And you want it to come out on whichever point you want the top of your star to be. So you might have to work it through a few more depending on where the top is. And I mean, if you don't care, just take it through a few at the top and just kind of pull on it to secure it more. But just make sure it's near a point. You don't want it to be in the middle. There we go. So that little star is complete, and we're going to set this little guy aside for now. Now it's time to work on our bag. We're going to create a magic ring just like we did on the other one, on the star. I'm going to show you another way to make this, just because this is such a teeny tiny project that I actually don't really like to use 2 fingers when I am working with this small of yarn. If you're not working with tiny yarn, don't worry about this. Just do the magic ring the same way that you did the stars. But I just want to show you how I usually make this. So I usually just take 1 finger, and this is a little bit harder to do, which is why I didn't show you on the star. And we're going to wrap the yarn around just like we did on the star. I'm keeping it pretty loose here because I want to be able to slide my hook under the first piece and then over the second piece. And then we're gonna twist this and go ahead and pull on this to tighten. Yarn over and pull through that loop. There you go. You might find that harder or easier, just really depends. What that does is it just gives me a smaller tail here, so I'm just not using as much yarn. On the first round of our bag, we are going to be working 6 single crochets into the magic ring. So I already showed you how to make a single crochet, but on the bag, I'm going to be doing what's called a yarn under, yarn over single crochet. So it just worked a little bit differently, and you can do a yarn over single crochet or a yarn under. It's totally up to personal preference. But I'm going to show you how to do yarn under, yarn over. This is a very commonly used single crochet in amigurumi. So again, we're going to work our hook through the magic ring and make sure that tail is on top. And then also, I like to kind of grab onto the magic ring here just to extra secure all of this because it's very finicky, especially the first one. So let's start with a yarn under. So what we were doing before is we were taking our yarn like this, wrapping it around the top of the hook. But now I like to just kind of take my hook and I'm placing my hook on top of the yarn and I'm wrapping the yarn around the bottom of the hook. And then pull it through the magic ring and your tail. You should have 2 loops on your hook. Yarn over and pull through both hooks, just like that. And then let's place a stitch marker on our first single crochet. Let's walk through how to make the single crochet one more time. Insert into the magic ring, yarn under, pull up 2 loops, yarn over and pull through both loops. Now let's just make the rest of our single crochets. We want 6 in total. Once you have 6 single crochets, let's go ahead and remove our hook. And we're going to grab the tail and tighten our magic ring. You can pull it really tight. For this pattern, you can either work this in a continuous spiral or you can work it in rounds. It doesn't matter which way you do. Both will look good. If you work in closing rounds, you will have a seam, but it's very hard to see it. So here's the seam on one of my other pieces. You can see it is very hard to tell that there is a seam there. So personally, I prefer to work with closing rounds on this project just because it's so teeny tiny. It does make it a little bit easier to work in closing rounds. But if you want to work in continuous spirals, that's totally fine. And what that means is instead of closing your round, which is what I'm about to show you, instead you'll just work the first stitch right directly into this stitch. So you'll skip the next step that I'm going to show you. So let's close the round. We're going to insert our hook into the first stitch. If you can't insert because of your stitch marker and it's too tight, just go ahead and remove your stitch marker. And then we're just creating a slit stitch. So yarn over and pull through that stitch and then pull through the loop. And that closes our round, and then we have this teeny tiny little circle. Go ahead and remove the stitch marker. Ignore this if you are working in the spiral, but if you're working in closed rounds, to begin each round, you are going to chain 1. If you are a beginner, you may prefer to mark the last stitch in the round so that you know where it is. This is the chain one that we made, and this is the slit stitch right here. So I don't want you to get confused with the slit stitch. So if you're a beginner, mark the last stitch of the round. So mark your stitch and then double check. You should see your slit stitch, and then you should see your chain one. So that's your last stitch of the round. And if you're really struggling, you can also mark the first stitch of the round. I will just mark it for this round just so I can show. Okay, so we should have 6 stitches in this round, and this right here, this is our first stitch right here. And you can double check by counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 6 is where your stitch marker is. So that's where the first stitch goes. So we're going to insert a single crochet into the first stitch. And then let's mark that with a stitch marker. On this round, we're going to be increasing in every stitch around. And what increasing means is placing 2 stitches into 1 stitch. So we just placed our first single crochet. So now we're going to insert our hook into the same exact stitch, and we're going to create our second single crochet in the same stitch, and that's an increase. And I want you to go around and insert an increase into every stitch. So by the end of this round, you should have 12 single crochets. When you get to your stitch marker, you know that that is the last stitch, so go ahead and remove that and insert your last increase. Make sure you count your stitches, and you should have 12. We're going to close the round the same way we did the last round by slit stitching to that first single crochet. And I do this pretty tightly to try to reduce how much the seam shows. So go ahead and remove the stitch marker. And again, if you need to stitch mark the last stitch, you can go ahead and do that. And then we're going to chain 1. And now we're going to begin round 3. In round 3, we're going to be increasing again, but just a little bit differently. So in the first stitch, insert just 1 single crochet. In the next stitch, we are going to increase. So insert 2 single crochets. And that's what we're going to be repeating around in round 3. So do 1 single crochet and then do 1 increase in the next stitch. And that's what we're going to repeat. So by the end of this round, we should have 18 stitches, and you should end with an increase in your last stitch. So go ahead and finish this round. I've reached the end of this round, so what I'm going to do is just close the round the same way that we've closed the rest of the rounds by slip stitching to the first stitch. And again, make sure that you count your stitches. You want to make sure that you have 18. You don't want to do a bunch of rounds and then realize that your count is off. I've been there many times. So the next 3 rounds, we're going to do the same exact thing. So chain 1 if you're closing your rounds. We're just going to place a single crochet in every stitch around. So in each stitch, just place 1 single crochet. So by the end of the round, you will still have 18 stitches, and we are going to repeat this same exact thing for 3 rounds. So round 4 through round 6. Your project is going to start curling upwards now that we're done increasing, so that is what we want to happen. So you'll start to see it go this way. And go ahead and complete those rounds, and then I will see you at the end of round 6. I have just completed round 6, and this is how my little bell bag is looking. On round 7, we are going to start decreasing. So chain 1, and in the first stitch, we are just going to create a single crochet. In the next stitch, I'm going to create a decrease, and to decrease, what we do is insert into the next stitch, yarn under, and pull up a loop as if you were going to make a single crochet, but instead of finishing it, you're going to combine it with the next stitch. So insert your hook into the next stitch, yarn under, and pull up, and now you should have 3 loops on your hook. And then we're just going to complete the single crochet as normal. So yarn over and pull through all 3 loops. So let's do that together one more time. So in the next stitch, and this is what we're repeating all the way around, is doing 1 regular single crochet and then 1 decrease. 1 regular single crochet, 1 decrease. So let's do our next decrease. Insert into the next stitch, yarn under, pull up a loop, insert into the next stitch, yarn under, pull up a loop. You should have 3 loops, yarn over, and pull through all 3 loops. And we're just going to continue that all the way around. And again, in your last stitch, you should have a decrease for your last stitch. And at the end of this row, we will be back to having 12 total stitches. When we reach the end of the round, I just did my last decrease. We are going to slip stitch to the first stitch, our first single crochet, just like we have been doing. Here is how we're looking so far, and the next thing we're going to do is we are going to sew the star onto the bag at this point, because I personally just find it to be a little bit easier to do while the bag is open like this. If you prefer, you can sew the star on at the end. And just refer to the timestamps in the video if you prefer to do it that way. Okay, so with our little star, I'm going to turn it around and I'm going to connect the tail end of the magic ring to a darning needle. Okay, this part is a little bit finicky, so make sure that your seam is in the back of your bag. This is where our loop is coming out of right now. I'm going to make sure that my star is on the front here. And I'm sort of placing my star onto the bag just to see where I want to place it. And then I'm kind of lifting it up a little bit. And I'm going to put the center of the tail through this end just to get it out of our way. Just tuck it into the bag. Now place the other end on your darning needle. Okay, this is so tiny. This part is going to be a little bit difficult to explain and show, but I'm going to try my best here to walk you through what I do. And I am definitely going to put it out there that I'm not the best at sewing, so you might find a better way to do this than I did. And if you don't want to sew at all, there's no problem with just gluing the star onto the bag. And position your star how you would like it on the bag. So mine's like this. Insert the hook into the bag and pull it through. And then make sure you try to come out at a different point of the bag than where you came into it. And I'm trying to pierce Sorry, this is so hard to show, but I'm trying to pierce the top of the point of my star, or at least close to it. And I'm going to pull this back out. And then I'm going to insert another point of the star. And take it back through to the center. We're just going to keep repeating, going back and forth around the star here. So then I'm going to come back out and I'm going to grab a point of the star and pull back out. Yeah, I find this to be quite difficult to sew on, but you don't need to do too much or anything. Just go around the circle or go around the star as much as you would like, and just keep inserting it into points of the star on the outside, and then coming back out and grabbing a piece of the star. So I'll show you how I do one more point here. Just try your best to keep the points looking as decent as you can. Like, try not to have this one like way up here or anything like that. So just take your time with it. So I'm inserting back through the star and back through the back. Before I kind of come back out, I like to sort of reposition the star and make sure it's in the spot that I want it to be. And then I'll take my needle out and grab it as close to that spot I had it in as I can. Just like that. There we go. Now I'm just going to play the footage here of me sewing this on. It's, like I said, I'm so sorry. It's really hard to explain, but just do your best to try to sew the star on, or if you get really frustrated, you could just glue it on. Okay, I quite struggled with that because it was quite hard with the camera in my face. But as you can see, it's not like perfect or anything, but it looks pretty cute and it is on there good enough, and it doesn't need to be perfect. This is such a small little thing that no one will really be able to tell. After I'm done, I try to secure it in the back if I can, but it is honestly really difficult to, because it's kind of difficult to get your needle out here. But even if you can just get it through one stitch like I just did, that should be good enough. And then we will just kind of bury this end in the bag. Now we're going to put some stuffing into our bag. I'm just putting a little bit in. You can also put any scrap yarn in here, whatever you have laying around. And I don't like to fill it too full. I don't want it to be like super round or anything, so that seems good for me. Great, on round 8, we are going to chain 1. And this round is a little bit difficult because we are going to decrease all the way around our bag. We will decrease 6 times in total, so we'll have 6 stitches at the end. Insert into the first stitch, yarn over, and then insert into the next stitch, yarn over, and create that first decrease. And repeat that around 6 times. After you're done decreasing around, you're going to end your round by slip stitching to the first decrease. Here is how mine is looking. That's probably the hardest round when you have to decrease around and you're creating such a small circle at this point. So just try your best. For round 9, instead of chaining 1, we're going to chain 2 to begin our round. In this round, we're going to be inserting 3 half double crochets into every stitch around, and we're only going to be inserting it into the front loops only. So what that means is when you're looking at your stitches here, this is a stitch. We have our 2 loops. This loop back here is the back loop, and this one closer to us is the front loop. So this front loop is the only loop that we'll be working around in this round. To create a half double crochet, yarn over to put an extra loop on your hook. Insert into that front loop only, yarn over, bring up 3 loops, yarn over, pull through all 3 loops. And let's mark our first half double crochet so we know where it is. I want to insert 3 half double crochets into every stitch. Let me show you one more time how to make a half double crochet. So yarn over, insert into the same stitch, yarn over, pull up 3 loops, yarn over, pull through all 3 loops. So we're just going to continue this, making 3 half double crochets in every stitch just like this. So in the next stitch, I'm going to put 3 more half double crochets. And I'm just going to do that in every stitch around. By the end of this round, you should have 18 stitches. Now I'm going to lift up my hook, and I'm going to show you how to do an invisible join to give us a clean finish. Go ahead and cut your yarn, and you don't need a super long piece. Place your tail on a darning needle. To make an invisible stitch, we're basically going to make a stitch over the very first stitch because we're going to create a new stitch. It's going to lay right over that first stitch and just make a really seamless finish here. So skip the first stitch, and then in the second stitch, you're going to insert your needle going away from you. And then I like to grab that end that we just pulled and make sure it's kind of lifted on top of the first stitch. And then just tighten it a little bit. You don't want to tighten it too much because you want it to kind of match your other stitches here. And then we're going to go through the back loop of the last stitch, the one that we just came out of. So insert into the back loop. And I'm going to insert it down through a couple of stitches like that to really secure it. And just pull it until it kind of matches your other stitches. See, you can't really tell which stitch it was. It's this one right here. And that gives us a really clean finish. Now I want to create a knot because I'm going to be closing this circle, but if I close it right now, it's gonna really pull on this stitch up here, and I don't want that to happen. So let's create a knot. So find a nearby stitch to go into, and then pull through very slowly and you're going to hold onto this loop that's forming and just pull your yarn through. And I'm just going to make this a little bit smaller. And then I'm going to insert my hook back through that loop. And I'm going to pull. And that creates a little knot right there. Now you can see the back loops that we made from working into the front loop of round 9. So there should be 6 back loops here. I'm going to bring my needle down through this stitch that's kind of coming up right here. It doesn't have to be in a specific spot, but we're just trying to get it lower into the bag. So I'm pulling it down that way. And then you can count your 6 stitches here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, just so that you know where they are. And we're going to close this circle. So to do that, I'm going to bring the needle around the first stitch, and I'm going to bring it towards me. And then I'm going to bring it around the next stitch, and I'm going to do the same exact thing. And I'm going to kind of pull it in between each one that I do. And I usually count when I'm doing this, just so I know that I've done all 6. On the last one, I'm just pulling it pretty tight here. It doesn't perfectly close the circle, and it doesn't really have to be pretty in here. We're just trying to close that circle a little bit more. So at the very end, because it doesn't have to look neat, I'll kind of take my needle across to the other side. And I'm just going to bring it back towards me. Just to close the center a little bit more, and you can repeat that as many times as you would like. I'm just going to do it once more. There we go. Now our center is closed pretty well. The stuffing shouldn't really come out. And when you're done, you're just going to insert your needle down and then bring it out to a random point and pull it through. And now we will cut off this yarn tail. There we go. Now we have closed our cute little bag, and now we just need to add our little red ribbon. So I'm just taking some red yarn, and I am leaving it attached to the skein right now. And I'm going to wrap it around like this. And then I'm going to take the one end and I'm going to wrap it around again. Then I'm going to take the other end and wrap it around the other way. Now I'm going to take my end and tie a knot. And I'm going to tie a knot one more time. Now I'm not pulling too tight on the red because I don't want it to pull in too much. That's why we closed the center instead of doing it with the string here, because it would just kind of deform the bag a little bit. And now I like to just tie a little bow, which I'm not very good at. but I'm just gonna try my best. And now I'm gonna take this end that is not connected here, and I'm just gonna kind of pull it through to adjust the loop. And then I'm gonna pull this one to make this loop smaller. And then I'm gonna keep like tightening it to try to secure it more. And I'm just gonna keep repeating, kind of making the loops smaller and trying to make it a little bit tighter so that it's nice and secure. So that looks good to me. Now I'm going to take my scissors and cut these. And because I left my yarn attached, I only ended up wasting a little bit of yarn. And there we go! Our little belt bag is all complete and it's looking so cute. If you found this tutorial helpful, please subscribe to my channel and like this video. I also have a video coming up in hopefully the next few days that's going to use these little belt bags on some Animal Crossing leg warmers. So you don't want to miss out on that. If you're watching this in the future, I will have that video linked. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye!